About that. Don't think about how you feel, how tired you are, how hot it is. You got to push yourself on the field like when you're playing football.
It's my honor to present the national championship trophy to Coach Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide.
To me, this is the ultimate team. All these guys bought into everything they needed to do to be the best players that they could be. There's more togetherness on this team than almost any team that we've ever had. And they had to overcome and persevere so much adversity through this season, and they've done it magnificently. And I'm so proud of this group for what they've been able to accomplish and going undefeated and winning the national championship.
Streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and the Tide 100.9 app. Here is your host of Off the Edge, Jacob Harrison.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome into Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. I am Jacob Harrison. It's a great day to talk about Alabama Crimson Tide sports, and we'll get into all of it. Tide 100.9 is your home for that. The Tide 100.9 app is your best friend as a Crimson Tide fan, though. Whether it's on your Apple device, your Android device, wherever your needs are, the Tide 100.9 app has got you covered, as well as Tide 109.com. Today we will dive into it with Amanda Christovich, the Baylor situation with the NCAA. It's nasty. It's gross. It's disgusting. It sets a precedent that doesn't work in today's culture, in today's world, and honestly, in any culture, in any world, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But we'll get into that with her at 11:15. College football reporter for Front Office Sports, dealing with a lot of legality issues in the world of sports over there at Front Office Sports. One thing that Nick Saban said, though, at the end of his press conference, the very last question, and Brian, if you get this pulled up, it'd be great. Should Nick Saban have a Twitter account? And I'm on Twitter 24 hours a day. I live there. Not particularly good at it, at J Harrison OTE, at Off the Edge 109, but I have a lot of fun there. It's where we get a lot of our news, right? It's where we get a lot of updates, where you feel like you've got some sort of connection with, people with some fame behind them, right? The little blue check marks mean something on the interwebs. And Nick Saban would no doubt, because he's great at everything he does, would no doubt be great at Twitter. And in his final comments, he talks about how it's open to a possibility. There's a chance, as long as it actually benefits the football team. And why shouldn't it? Why shouldn't it benefit the Alabama Crimson Tide for Nick Saban to have a Twitter account at Coach Nick Saban? It's available. Do not go out and steal at Coach Nick Saban. We got to give this some time to marinate. But it's a possibility. He said, if I thought it would enhance players' chances to improve their brand by something that I did, I would be all for it. I've tried to focus on two things here. How do we develop our players? How do we bring players to our team? So if that can help in either one of those things, then I might consider it. That's what head coach Nick Saban said yesterday. You tell me, how would Twitter negatively impact any of those things? It wouldn't. It would work so well. It would be a brilliant idea. It would help with recruiting, not on a grand scale, because we're already talking about the best recruiter this sport has ever seen. Right? He doesn't need a Twitter account. He could use a Twitter account. Look around the conference, right? Look at Lane Kiffin, the way that he uses his Twitter account. constantly boosting up his program, right? Sure, he has his fun. He trolls Nick Saban. He trolls other programs as well, but he boosts the Ole Miss football program on a consistent basis, whether that's retweeting athletes who list Ole Miss in their top 5, whether that's retweeting athletes who announce that they have a scholarship offer, whether that's retweeting athletes who have committed to the Ole Miss Rebels football team, right? Look at Ed Orgeron, the way that he gets the job done. Just simply tweeting out a hold that tiger right before a commitment or right after a commitment. And it gets thousands of likes. It gets thousands of interactions. And all it is a bridge, right, between the program, the recruits, and the fan base, right? Isn't that a lot? Because it's about boosting brands, right? Then you look on the NIL side. How does that not boost the brand of Alabama football? Sure, Alabama's got the best brand in football. No doubt. No doubt about it. Alabama's got the best brand in football. But when you really, really stop and consider it, is being the top dog the end all be all? Do you get to the top by being content with being number 1? No. We're not here to be content. We talked about it yesterday and Tuesday at length. This is about getting better. This is about improving the Alabama football brand. This is about improving the odds of bringing players to this team. And you're going to tell me that just because we're already at the top, that we can't continue to boost the Alabama Crimson Tide brand? Here's Nick Saban. This is what he said. You tell me there's not a little bit of wiggle room here to move forward with this incredible idea. It was a great question. He didn't shoot it down. And he said, hey, if any of you out there think that you can convince me, that sounded like a challenge. I see avenues with recruiting. I see avenues with NIL. I see avenues with Nick's kids. All of the branding opportunities. And in the world of NIL and in the world of brands mattering so much, especially in the world of recruiting, I've heard people talk about how with Texas A&M, what helped them in recruiting so much when they got to the SEC is the fact that they put that fat SEC logo next to everything. Because branding matters. A good Twitter account, that's good branding. Here's Nick Saban from yesterday's press conference.
Well, nobody has, and I don't know what it would look like if I did. I mean, you guys keep wanting to ask hypothetical questions today. I've never been big with social media. It takes a lot of time. You got to respond to a lot of things. I've tried to focus on, two things here. How do we develop our players? And how do we bring players to our team, whether it's how we evaluate them or how we develop relationships to be able to recruit them here. And so far, that's worked okay. If any of you out there can convince me that me having a Twitter account is going to help us do a better job in either one of those things, then I might consider it. Otherwise, I don't know why I would consider doing it. And no players have come to me and talked to me about it. But if I would say this, if I thought it would enhance players' chances to improve their brand by something that I did, I would be all for it.
That sounds like a real opportunity, doesn't it? How about what he said earlier, right? Earlier, he was asked about Twitter accounts and social media accounts and how Alabama if at all, kind of manages those for the players, right? towards the end of that answer, he says, what you put out there is creating value for you one way or another. So it's no different than what we've always done. We promote guys to try to create value in their brand by what they do personally, academically, and athletically. That's how you create value, and that's what people are interested in. So why shouldn't that very quote apply to Alabama and the football program? When you're number one, the goal is to create a gap between you and number two so that number two cannot overlap you. You don't win a race confidently by doing just enough to get ahead. Because if you do just enough to get ahead, but you're on the outside shoulder and the finish line is right out of turn 4 and your opponent's on the inside, he can take you over. Just like that. So when you really think about it, and look, I get it. I understand. Nick Saban doesn't need that. It's just a distraction. It's this, that, and the other thing. Saban doesn't have to run the Twitter account. I'm not an idiot. I'm not foolish. You pay somebody else to do that. And it's the simple ideas of just retweeting and helping your players' brands, retweeting and helping with recruiting. And Saban already does these things because he's an evolutionary master when it comes to finding the slight edges, right? Finding those slight edges that increase the gap ever so slightly. Bragging about Bryce Young's near 7-figure deals through NIL right before SEC Media Days. That was calculated. That was intentional. That boosted his brand. That boosted Alabama's brand. That boosted Bryce Young's brand. That boosted every football player on the Alabama Crimson Tide roster. It boosted their brands. You can do the same thing on Twitter at the drop of a hat. You can even schedule it out so that it drops exactly when you need it to. It sounds like a foolproof plan to me. And it sounds exciting. There's my argument. You can read more about my argument at Tide109.com. Up next, Amanda Christovich, Front Office Sports, joins the show to help make sense what little exists, help make sense of the Baylor and NCAA situation that unfolded yesterday afternoon. I'm Jacob Harrison. This is Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
I said Chantilly lace and eggshell, not matte.
Colby's interior design consultancy is floored with new clients.
Wait, what am I looking at here? This looks like plaid.
They need an admin with an eye for design and a knack for numbers.
Okay, hey, look, take a look at this. Do those numbers look right?
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Screen for quality candidates with the skills your role needs with Indeed assessments. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Touchdown! Alabama wins! The Alabama football countdown clock is driven by Crawford Insurance, Tuscaloosa's low-cost auto insurer. Call 752-6489 for a free quote today.
Roll Tide! Roll Tide!
There are 23 days until Alabama football.
Susan, it's so great to finally be able to get together again.
Oh, it sure is. And I really appreciate you picking up the bill.
I'm happy to. I've got the extra cash. Since we've all been driving so much more again, I've been using Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Get Upside app?
Yes, up to 25 cents a gallon. Cash back every time I buy gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
Some months I make $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code BLUE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents a gallon on your next fill-up. You can cash out anytime to PayPal or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code BLUE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code BLUE.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Partially sunny with scattered showers and thunderstorms around through early tonight. The high today 92, tonight's low 73. For tomorrow and Saturday, a mix of sun and clouds both days with scattered showers and thunderstorms. Highs between 89 and 92. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 80 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Follow Off the Edge on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube for live streams and instant analysis. Off the Edge with Jacob Harrison continues.
We are back here on Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide Sports. Jacob Harrison here with you. Bryant Horn producing the show. Palmer McCall hanging out as well. Intern on the show Tuesdays and Thursdays. This week's gone by pretty fast. I'm pretty excited about that. Another media viewing period for us in the media today at Alabama Crimson Tide practice. So hopefully we'll learn another small piece to the puzzle that is the 2021 Alabama Crimson Tide football team. But there is other pressing news outside of, the gridiron itself when it comes to football, because yesterday the NCAA handed down its rulings for Baylor, and they did not add up. They did not make a lot of sense, and effectively, there's no rule in place. That's the excuse. That's what's happened, right? And so the NCAA has handed down their ruling that there's no rule in place. We can't punish them for something that's not there. However, they find a way to enforce, sanctions for recruiting violations and academic violations. And yet Baylor's 3 or 4 head coaches removed away from the Art Briles era. But because Art Briles finds himself in no trouble, he's eligible to start coaching as well. It's a real messed up situation. And that's why we brought in Amanda Christovich of Front Office Sports to help us try to make some sense of it. Amanda, what's going on? Welcome into the show. We appreciate you having the time for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on again.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure. So 19 players had been accused at Baylor. And a lot of folks think that even that number is probably kind of low since 2011. And now all these years later, and sometimes legal proceedings take a long time, it's the nature of things. But it feels like with the NCAA, the way that they've ultimately screwed the pooch on this is the fact that they handled the Penn State situation. They handled the North Carolina situation. Neither one of those go particularly well for one reason or another. But yet when it comes to the Baylor situation, it's we're in 2021 and there's no rule in place to handle sexual assault and sexual allegation situations such that Baylor has went through, and therefore there's nothing to punish them for. And it's understandable to not punish who's there now if they were not involved. But yet that still seems to be the case with the academic and recruiting violations. You can't like Baylor's almost the second party in this. It's all centers around the NCAA and their inability to really formulate a plan in dealing with anything, and it's stripping away more and more power, and they didn't have much to begin with.
That's exactly right. It's kind of surprising to a lot of people, but the NCAA actually, in its hundreds and hundreds of rules about recruiting violations, about infractions on, taking concert tickets from a booster or something like that, they don't actually have rules against either sexual assault or the mishandling of sexual assault. They have no way to adjudicate that in the sort of court that they have set up for themselves. And the Baylor decision is the perfect example of that at play. The report that the NCAA released basically confirmed that everyone on the infractions committee, everyone even involved with the investigation at Baylor, the current athletic director, the current president, have all agreed to the sort of horrors that happened there. And yet, Baylor argued that the NCAA doesn't have rules to say whether or not a school mishandles issues of sexual assault, Title IX reporting issues. There's nothing to adjudicate there in the NCAA rulebook, and they were right. And it's unfortunate, and it's something that Mark Emmert came out yesterday, the NCAA president, to say that he hopes that this changes in the upcoming constitutional convention, where the NCAA is going to come together and sort of rethink a lot of things that clearly haven't been working. But yeah, I mean, they couldn't get Baylor on mishandling of sexual misconduct. They decided that, and the infractions committee. I spoke with the spokesperson on the press call yesterday, and they said that they didn't feel that they had the authority to sort of go out on a limb and create their own rules to punish Baylor. Right? They looked far and wide, and there was nothing that they could, no rules that they could punish them for.
Amanda, I in my research for this, trying to catch up because it's been so long since this happened. I did stumble upon Pat Forty's take on this at Sports Illustrated, and he kind of leaned on the side that, well, if there's no legality, then what are you to do to a program that is so far removed from this situation? And we'll touch on Art Briles in a second. But this is just a little excerpt from his article. The NCAA shouldn't be tasked with legislating morality. Some issues are too serious and better left to law enforcement or the Department of Education, both of which have been involved at Baylor. And most locally of all, it should be the responsibility of the university itself. I'm kind of curious what you think when you hear that, because even if it is a measure of morality, it's still a matter of criminality. And I know that's not the NCAA's lane, but it's still their lane to ensure that these universities are set, are held to a standard that's presentable, especially at the D1 level. And yet, to not have rules in place, it not only you can't just plead ignorance to that, right?
Right. I understand that take. I think that obviously the Department of Education, who oversees Title IX, should be, the main adjudicators, that, including, the local police, law enforcement. But I also have been asking myself, with reporting on the NCAA, if the NCAA is, an organization that says that they're there to protect the welfare of college athletes, and they're not getting involved in matters of sexual assault, I'm not quite sure what the point of them is. I don't really understand, unless I think somebody else said, well, maybe the point of the NCAA from here on out is just to run championships, right? When it comes to gender, as we saw, they're not so great at doing that either, especially when it comes to every single championship besides the men's basketball tournament. So, my question is, why not have another avenue to ensure, that schools handle these allegations correctly? Because here's the problem with Title IX and with sexual assault reporting on college campuses. If something goes wrong in that process, the only way for anyone to get any sort of justice, the only way for somebody to oversee what the school is doing, is to file a complaint with the federal government. Most survivors don't even file, a complaint with the school, let alone the federal government. So I think the question we're all asking ourselves is there another way to incentivize schools to handle these issues correctly? And is there, they're all scared about recruiting violations and infractions because the NCAA watches them like a hawk when it comes to that. My question is, what if they felt that way about assault allegations? What if there was a way the NCAA could sort of light a fire under these programs? I don't know if that would work. That's actually what I'm going to be reporting on this week. I'm going to be speaking with some Title IX and gender and sports experts on that. So I don't know the answer to that question, but I just don't understand why we shouldn't be considering all avenues to address this epidemic, right, across the country.
I wholeheartedly agree. You shouldn't really have to incentivize anybody to handle sexual allegation cases from any standpoint, regardless of what level you have to report to. And I also find that we're asking the question of what's the purpose of the NCAA entirely way too much on the backside of the NIL, as well as the way they've handled this. That question props up so much that I think our mutual friend Dan Lust has a strong point that we might not have an NCAA in 10 years. But still, before we get to the constitution of this, it really, really bothers me, and I'm sure it does many others, that Art Briles is basically exonerated in this, and he's still free to continue coaching. Should anyone even still hire him? I'm not sure if he's got a coaching job or not. I don't think he does. But it's at the very least, like, you can still set precedent by saying, if you do get involved in these things, then we can still, at the very least, say that you're not welcome into this club. Ernie Johnson spoke to the Alabama Crimson Tide last night, and he talked about how these jobs, the media jobs, the football jobs, all these sorts of things, these are get-to jobs, not got-to jobs. So if you lose out on it, it's kind of on you, right? I don't know if the NCAA has something in place to kind of handle Art Briles' situation, but with another case very similar to this looming down in Louisiana, surely they've got to formulate something, right?
Right, and they tried, the NCAA tried to look at this case in a couple different ways. They tried to say, okay, if we have no rules against sexual assault or against the mishandling thereof, can we find a way to call this an impermissible benefit, right? A recruiting violation, in the sense of, Art Briles protected his football players in a way that the average student wouldn't be protected, if they were accused of sexual assault. And that constitutes an impermissible benefit. They couldn't even find that, because they found that the culture at Baylor at the time as a whole, the entire campus, had screwed up allegations of sexual misconduct so many times for athletes and non-athletes that they couldn't call it an impermissible benefit. Will that be the case at LSU? I don't know. But this was supposed to be sort of the NCAA's decision on Briles. I would say they didn't exonerate him. If you read the report, they totally ripped him to shreds. Okay. The report said that he didn't even, do the basic things that the average person would be expected to do. The report said that he failed to report these allegations, and a couple of years ago, when Urban Meyer was in hot water at Ohio State, I was involved in a story where we looked at coaches' contracts and whether or not the contracts themselves said that if a coach doesn't report sexual assault allegations, that they will be, in violation of their contract in some way, shape, or form. I haven't read Briles' contract from Baylor at the time, so I wouldn't know if he was in violation of his contract. But I think that that's something for schools to think about too, is that that is in some coaches' contracts. So would you trust this coach to not, violate basic human ethics, but B, not violate your contract, and C, just to be clear, not violate, a federal mandate about how Title IX reporting works. So in the sense that the NCAA is not going to unilaterally prohibit him from coaching again, that is true as far as I can see. But was he exonerated? I don't think so.
Words matter in legal issues. Exonerated, probably not the best word. Got off with a slap on the wrist, probably.
Well, no, I think that's an important word to bring up because his
Right.
lawyer yesterday said he was exonerated, right?
There we go.
He tried to spin it that way, but he wasn't exonerated if you read the report.
But when it comes down to what's going on at LSU, if you talk about the culture at Baylor being the reason you couldn't go with the impermissible benefits in recruiting, then unless the NCAA does, in fact, rewrite its constitution and does it, within a timely enough manner by the time the LSU investigations are done, then LSU would get off scot-free. This basically would set the precedent because LSU's situation is very, very similar to Baylor's. It's not just the football team; it's an entire culture problem down there. And from the USA Today reports, this is one of those things where it's a matter of coaches not reporting these correctly, many coaches, and it's a matter of players, never really finding any trouble at all. Some players not expelled from school until after they've already transferred to another institution. So with that precedent being the case, the NCAA's really got to change their strategy and the way that they handle these things, the way that their legal matters are written, so that they're not put completely in the grave and covered up by the future LSU case.
Right, and that's, I think, at this point, part of the purpose of the Constitutional Convention. So a couple of weeks ago, the NCAA said that, they have decided that clearly, things aren't working with us and we want to, survive as an organization and better serve our athletes. And so we're going to put together a roster of, of people from the NCAA sort of member community. And we're going to come together in November and have a constitutional convention. We're going to rewrite some things. And then in January, we're going to come together, in their annual convention. And then all the members are going to vote on it. Mark Emmert, like I mentioned, he said that he wants this to be something that gets rectified in that constitutional convention. I asked the head of the spokesperson for the Committee on Infractions whether he thinks that sexual assault matters should be adjudicated by the NCAA. He said ultimately it's up to the members, blah blah blah. But yeah, they said they wish they could have done that too. How they do that is going to be obviously up for debate. And then I will also say that it's not like they have any Title IX lawyers on their panel in November. They do have Baylor's current president, who obviously has shown, leadership and remorse and, wanting to improve. So maybe that will help. But they don't really it's not like they invited, a lot of actual people who actually want to reform the NCAA on a radical scale. It's a very inside baseball group. So I don't know what they're going to do in November, but we'll have to see.
We're talking with Amanda Christovich, college football reporter for Front Office Sports at @Christovich on the Twitter account. Let's talk about something a little bit more lighthearted with some NIL
right.
deals. It's been a wild few months, about a month and a half, I should say. We've seen in the past week DJ Uiagalelei announce a sponsorship with Dr. Pepper, so he'll be featured on commercials during the college football season. We've seen with Quinn Ewers opting out of his senior high school football season to go enroll at Ohio State, and he's taking along a big sponsorship from the state of Texas as well. De'Aaron King, he's got so many sponsorships you can't count them, but one of them's with an NHL team. Like what? And not to mention Nick Saban, brought up Bryce Young's deals. We don't have a lot of information here in Tuscaloosa about what deals he has, but we know he's in the range of seven figures. Through the first month and a half of NIL, what have been kind of your reactions to some of those deals and kind of the way that it's impacting college sports?
Well, I think we can talk a little bit about high school NIL, because I think that is it's a Pandora's box that's been open. That I mean, I even didn't really think too much about it, honestly, but it's very clear that especially in communities where high school football or high school basketball, for example, are a big part of community life. There are companies that want to pay high school players for endorsements. And there are some states like California who've said that, oh, actually, we thought about it and we don't have any rules against high school players signing endorsement deals. There are other states like Texas, obviously, who have said, no, we have, I think it's part of their college NIL state law that has language saying high school athletes cannot participate in this. Will it be as big of sort of a market as it will for college? The experts have told me probably not. The company that signed the basketball player Mikey Williams, who has millions of Instagram followers, Excel Sports Management, they were like, yeah, we don't really know that it's going to be sort of a free-for-all like it is in college sports, but there definitely is going to be a market there. And I wouldn't be surprised if the next step for that is similar to how it happened in the NCAA for the NCAA athletes, where I'm surprised that the state of Texas isn't sitting there going, wait a second, we need to make sure that we aren't losing, more athletes to this, right? Whether they be going to, because it's not just they might be losing them to college. Like some of the experts were saying, well, what if these athletes move to another state to finish high school, and they leave the schools that are part of the high school athletic association and they play for club teams instead. Like I'm assuming that the folks in Texas do not want that. So that's going to be something huge. I do have some numbers for you about the NCAA athletes. Open Doors put out a report that said, one of the NIL companies, they think that at the college level, based on what they've seen this month, NIL could result in over $1.5 billion in earnings for college athletes, which I think is a huge number. They also found that 25% of the top 100 highest earning athletes are female.
Awesome.
And
that's great.
And the three sports so far with the highest, they're calling like NIL market share, obviously football and men's basketball. Women's volleyball is the third. There's a huge following for women's volleyball in college, and I'm assuming that part of that is some of the women's volleyball athletes. There are a few that have huge social media followings, so I think they may have been sort of first in line for some of these NIL deals. But I thought that was really interesting, and I think it just sort of confirms what we spoke about a month ago, which is that it's not just the Bryce Youngs who are going to be making money from this.
That's awesome. And I know that we kind of had a preliminary idea of that with some of the female athletes that were able to profit very, very quickly with NIL when it first opened. It's good to see that's building upon that as well. I think gymnastics would probably be pushing pretty hard for that fourth spot as well. I know that's got a big culture around it. Softball as well. Montana Fouts here, our ace pitcher, is one of the top NIL earners around here as well. So Amanda, it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you giving us some numbers there on that and helping us break down the Baylor situation. Let them know if you got anything going on over there at Front Office Sports.
All right. Well, thanks again for having me.
All right. That's Amanda Christovich at A Christovich on the Twitter account, college football reporter for Front Office Sports. We'll take a break. We'll come back and dive into some more on the latest of the Alabama Crimson Tide football team. This is Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports.
With the help of Cheerios Oat Crunch Almond, I get everyone's morning started with a smile. It has a delicious and hearty combination of the Cheerios you love, whole grain oats, and sliced almonds for an extra crunchy crunch. That's how I set the rhythm for a great day. Look for Cheerios Oat Crunch Almond in your local grocery store.
Susan, it's so great to finally be able to get together again.
Oh, it sure is. And I really appreciate you picking up the bill.
I'm happy to. I've got the extra cash. Since we've all been driving so much more again, I've been using Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Get Upside app?
Yes, up to 25 cents a gallon. Cash back every time I buy gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
Some months I make $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code BLUE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents a gallon on your next fill up. You can cash out anytime to PayPal or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code BLUE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code BLUE.
It's back to school season at JCPenney, and the smart time to shop is now. Stock up on styles kids want and shop doorbusters all day Thursday to Sunday while they last. Like $11.99 select Thereabouts denim and $19.99 Arizona sneakers. Or use your coupon to save an extra 25% on select categories. Shop extended store hours all weekend. Weekdays are back in style. JCPenney. Doorbusters valid 8/12 to 8/15 and excluded from coupon. Coupon valid through 8/19. Some exclusions apply. See store or jcp.com for details.
I said Chantilly lace and eggshell, not matte.
Colby's interior design consultancy is floored with new clients.
Wait, what am I looking at here? This looks like plaid.
They need an admin with an eye for design and a knack for numbers.
Okay, hey, look, take a look at this. Do those numbers look right?
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Screen for quality candidates with the skills your role needs with Indeed assessments. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
We aren't going anywhere. Off the Edge is available in the podcast center on Tide100.9.com.
We are back here on Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide Sports. 205-342-9904 is the phone number to call. We'll get to Steve in just a bit. What I really wanted to do was make sure that we didn't leave this show without playing the little bit that we were able to hear from Ernie Johnson, the Turner Broadcasting media man. You see him on NBA Tonight and those sorts of things with TNT, and really want to make sure that this is played. It's something that people need to hear. Is incredible 5 minutes from Ernie Johnson talking to the Alabama Crimson Tide football team. I mean, this thing was posted at 6:00 last night, and it's already got 2.5 million views on Twitter alone. So enjoy this from Ernie Johnson real quick.
Would come and speak to his football team? Yes and no, not the answers. What time is the answer? And what I've had at Turner, I've been there for 32 years now. What I've got is a get-to job, not a got-to job. I get to do that. When you look across a room and you lock eyes with a teammate and you're wearing the same colors, that you get to. That's not a got to. See, the reason our show is successful is because nobody tries to make it about themselves. Chuck's never tried to do that. Shaq's never tried to do that. Neither has Kenny. And God knows I'm not trying to. Nobody cares what I think about a basketball game. I'm just trying to get us from point A to point B to point C, and I'm trying to make these guys shine. It's about knowing your role. So what is your role? There's value in everybody. Everybody on our team at Turner, value in every position. When I think about value, I think about this kid right here. See, I'd come home from work one day and she said, you know what we need to do? She says, no, we need to go to Romania and adopt a kid. I said, no, hold on. I mean, we've got 2 children. We're the script. We're following the script. Don't be afraid to go unscripted, folks. Cheryl had seen a story on ABC News about these Romanian orphans being warehoused. Those with special needs were just forgotten. Let's give a kid a second chance. So we went unscripted. The nurse who handed this boy to her, you know what she said? She said, "Don't take this boy, he's no good." Can you imagine? And I said, "Bring him home." He gets diagnosed with muscular dystrophy, which a lot of kids don't make it out of their teens when you got that, because your muscles don't grow, they waste away. The coach, with less hair than me, a guy named Phil Beaulieu. Michael at this point is in high school. See, this coach knows what I know. He knows there's value in everybody. He said, "I want him to be my 5-foot-tall impact player with no vertical leap." He said, "Because I see value in him. Because the day I met him, I followed him into his classroom. I had a conversation with him, and Michael doesn't communicate well. And he has a kind of a Rain Man kind of memory. So if he meets you, you tell him what you drive, he'll never forget it. So he has this great memory, but he also has this 3 words he loves to say, and you don't have to say it to him first. He just says, 'Love you too.'" This is from a kid who didn't speak until he was 8. So Phil Beaulieu asked if he could be on his basketball team so he could teach his team 2 things. Maximum effort, for Michael to move any muscle in his body. Takes everything he's got. And he said, "I want him to teach my team having a heart for others." And that heart for others runs deep, where you can lock eyes with the teammate and say, "I'd do anything for you. I would do anything for you." He teaches all of his students how to say "I love you" in sign language. He says, and look, if you tip your index finger at the other person, it means "love you too." So that on senior night, Michael goes out last. My wife and I follow his wheelchair out there. Like the other players, people are standing and applauding. But unlike the other players, I look up in the student section and they're standing like this. Because this kid, this Romanian orphan, and this coach from Indiana somehow got together in a gym in Brazelton, Georgia, and taught this huge school about love. Remember, don't take this boy, he's no good. Right. Value in everybody. When you step away from your agenda and notice that there are moments that can make somebody's life better. That's all I try to teach me and teach my kids. When you wake up in the morning, how am I going to make somebody else's life better today? And there's a team much bigger than this. There's a team that is trying to make somebody's day better. That's all of us. I was just going to wear this shirt today, and I thought it'd be a little informal just to show up in a t-shirt. But this is what's underneath. Be a better human. How are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? Love you too.
Incredible stuff from Ernie Johnson. Gotta say, man, Ernie's one of my favorite broadcasters in the world. I mean, he's up there with Rich Eisen and you know, a lot of other guys that I looked up to getting into this business, because he's a real human being, and you know, when you know that when he talks like that, he's being genuine. He's saying things that truly impact people and that matter. So I wanted to make sure that got played. It was such an incredible thing. It's one of the best one of the best speeches that we've heard given to the Alabama Crimson Tide. Very impactful, incredible stuff. Big thanks to the Alabama football Twitter account for giving us an inside peek as to what Ernie Johnson had to say. We'll take a break. Come back for the final segment. Steve, don't go anywhere. We'll take your phone call, 205-342-9904. This is Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama sports.
With the help of Cheerios Oat Crunch Almond, I get everyone's morning started with a smile. It has a delicious and hearty combination of the Cheerios you love, whole grain oats, and sliced almonds for an extra crunchy crunch. That's how I set the rhythm for a great day. Look for Cheerios Oat Crunch Almond in your local grocery store.
Susan, it's so great to finally be able to get together again.
Oh, it sure is. And I really appreciate you picking up the bill.
I'm happy to. I've got the extra cash. Since we've all been driving so much more again, I've been using Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Get Upside app?
Yes, up to 25 cents a gallon. Cash back every time I buy gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
Some months I make $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code BLUE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents a gallon on your next fill up. You can cash out anytime to PayPal or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code BLUE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code BLUE.
It's back to school season at JCPenney, and the smart time to shop is now. Stock up on styles kids want and shop doorbusters all day Thursday to Sunday while they last. Like $11.99 select thereabouts denim and $19.99 Arizona sneakers. Or use your coupon to save an extra 25% on select categories. Shop extended store hours all weekend. Weekdays are back in style. JCPenney. Doorbusters valid 8/12 to 8/15 and excluded from coupon. Coupon valid through 8/19. Some exclusions apply. See store or jcp.com for details.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Partially sunny with scattered showers and thunderstorms around through early tonight. The high today 92, tonight's low 73. Tomorrow and Saturday, a mix of sun and clouds both days with scattered showers and thunderstorms. Highs between 89 and 92. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 80 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to Off the Edge on Tide 100.9.
We're back on Off the Edge, Tide 100.9. Let me give you just a quick second to tell you about Alabama Vintage, 2210 University Boulevard at Alabama VTG on the Instagram account. It's the best way to find the newest items in stock. Claim them for yourselves. You can also find the brand ambassadors and get 15% off your order at alabamavtg.com. Head on inside, pick up what you need, whether it's shoes, t-shirts, jerseys, hats, starter jackets, everything that you can imagine. Alabama Vintage has it all. Memorabilia to line your walls as well. Go in, check out Charlie's shop, and enjoy something that can boost your fandom. Let's go out to the hotline. Welcome in Steve to the show. Steve, what's going on, man?
Hey, bud, how you doing?
Doing all right.
Listen, that's not why I called, but listening to that Ernie Johnson clip is amazing. That guy has been through so much, tragedy. He's had cancer, with his children. He's an amazing man, and I could listen to him all day long. He is by far my favorite commentator.
Absolutely, an incredible human being.
He really is. Listen, I'm sorry if you don't mind. I caught the very tail end. Could you just, in a nutshell, go back over this Art Briles Baylor thing? I didn't get it all.
So basically, yesterday afternoon, Art Briles the word is not exonerated. His lawyer used the word exonerated, like Amanda Christovich told us, but he's basically still free to find a coaching job as far as he is concerned, because the NCAA could not find anything. It could not, this is the quote, could not conclude that Baylor violated NCAA rules when it failed to report allegations of and address sexual and interpersonal violence committed on its campus. What Christovich told us was that they tried to see if they could make it a impermissible benefits. Basically, if they could use the sexual misconduct as something that was a recruiting benefit for players on the football team, then they could try to go that route. But because it was something that was ingrained in the culture at Baylor across many sports and even with your average student who wasn't a student athlete, those sorts of things, there was no rule in the books from the NCAA on how to handle allegations of sexual abuse or sexual assault, interpersonal violence, those sorts of things. So now the NCAA, Mark Emmert says, is efforting to rewrite its constitution and try to make up for these things. Because if you look at it from that lens and you look at what's going on in Baton Rouge, very, very similar situations.
Well, I wasn't there, but there's just the evidence that speaks towards Baylor and Art Browse in particular is just too damning.
Yeah,
I don't buy that one. I don't buy that one bit. And I hope and I hate to say this, but I hope he never coaches again.
Hey, you would think at some point some actual law enforcement, some criminal activity would be discussed, but apparently it's not the case. Football is bigger than everything. Steve, I appreciate it, man. We got to get out of here.
All right, man. Thanks for taking my call. Love your show.
Absolutely. I greatly appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Up next is the Jay Barker Show. I'm Jacob Harrison for Bryant Horn, Palmer McCall. This is Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide Sports. Have a great day, everybody.